Good evening, and we welcome you all to today's webinar hosted by Jointly. My name is Suzanne, and today we'll be discussing the topic Land Co-Ownership as a Strategy to Build Wealth. I'm certain that we are all interested in this topic, and it's going to be a really insightful one. Today, the discussion will be led by the CEO and founder, Mr. Olisa Omera, and he'll be throwing more light on this discussion. Kindly note that there will be a recap of this webinar available on YouTube on our channel afterwards. We also look forward to your feedback and encourage you to join our growing community on Instagram, Facebook, and Telegram. Our handle on Instagram is at own jointly. We look forward to seeing you there. For those of you who are tuned in, and for those of you just joining in, we want to apologize to you for the brief delay we had before starting, and we welcome you once more and look forward to a very insightful and interactive session. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. You can't. I hope you can hear me. On our last webinar, we had about 30 persons here already at this time. I'm wondering what's happening today. If you can hear me, please just say hi um, in the chat section, and I would. Okay, this is private chat. Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Please confirm if you can hear me. All right, perfect. I will just share my slides now and then. Okay. Can I share my slide? Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Can you make it full? All right. Oh, wow. Okay. So my name is Olisa Omira. I am the founder and CEO at Symbolic Development Limited, um, owners of jointly the jointly products, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Land Co-Ownership, a Strategy to Building Wealth. I'll just go straight to it. But before then, I just want to probably talk a little bit about my qualifications. So I have my background is in chemical engineering, of course, and then I started real estate in 2016, which is about almost 6 years now, sometime late 2016, and I started selling real estate. I started as a realtor, and then a few years after that, I decided to take up a master's degree in real estate and finance, which I'm currently running at the University of Reading in England. And then we started Symbolic as a company in 2019, which is about 3 years now. And when we started Symbolic, the goal was to ensure that we come up with products that people can actually use, build houses that people can would actually live in, and then find a way to make real estate investing accessible to more people. And then we decided to do that using technology and leverage, and that's where the product jointly came about. So to today's topic, so everyone knows that there are different ways people use land. When someone buys land, they are either buying it so that they can build on it, right, and then rent it out to the end users, people who would use it, or they want to just build and sell. Or some people buy the land rather, and then lease this land. So they buy the land and then probably give it to people to use for farming, or give it to people to use for whatever, probably event center or whatever, right? They lease this land, and those are ways people make money from land. Now, the thing about buying land is that there are different strategies to buying land. Someone who wants to buy land in Ikeja right now, would have to have a lot of money. So we're talking about hundreds of millions of naira, right? Someone who wants to buy land in Lekki Phase 1 would have to have hundreds of millions of naira as well. Someone who wants to buy land in Ibejileki, on the other hand, would, with 15 million naira thereabouts, they'll get good property, with title in Ibejileki. And if you go further down, to Ekpe, with 1 million naira, 2 million naira, less than 1 million naira, depending on where you are investing and what the title is, right? You will get a parcel of land. So people have, invested in land at different times for different reasons and with different strategies. But now, I'm going to talk about, how you can build wealth with land ownership. And there are two major strategies. When you look at everything, right, there are two major strategies that people, use to build wealth with land ownership. The first is land banking. Now, I was speaking with someone on Friday, and he says he bought about 10 plots of land somewhere in Ogombo. So Ogombo is at Etiosa, somewhere after Aja, and he bought them for 5 million naira per plot. What he's a developer. He builds houses, and they were just thinking of buying lands and then banking them. And this was in 2019. Fast forward to 2022, 3 years later, a plot of land within that axis where he bought the land, is currently selling for about 45 million naira. So imagine he even wants to sell below the going rate, right? He would sell at 35 million naira, and that's simple land banking. That's how land banking works. Now, there are people who decide to bank land, and then uh, let's say you buy land right now in Ekpe and you decide to hold for 20 years, that's another form of land banking. Land banking is dependent on um, how fast the location, like how well the location develops, how fast land in that axis appreciates, and presence of infrastructure and people. But I'll talk about land banking separately. Now, a second way, you can build well with land ownership is joint venture. Is joint ventures. So let's say, for instance, you want to go into, real estate investing, and then let's say you have 25 million naira to buy a parcel of land, let's say somewhere in Aja, but that's all you have, right? So you could buy the land, you own the land, and then call someone else, a developer or an investor, to um, collaborate with you, and then he develops that property. So he could build, duplexes, he could build apartments, he could build whatever he wants to build on the land. And eventually, what happens is that the both of you would share, the proceeds of that development, depending on each person's equity. And I'm going to come to that. Now, the third, I want to call it a combination of both. So there are people who focus on banking land in developing areas. Let's say you come to Shongotedu, you know, let's say how many years ago now? Let's say 3 years ago, 2019, you came to Shongotedu and then you bought, lots of land, let's say 5 plots, 10 plots thereabout, and then each one costs you say 17 million naira, 21 million naira thereabout, and then you bank this land. And then in 2022, you decide that you want to partner with real estate developers or real estate investors to develop some of the land. So you bought 10 plots of land for 17 million naira each, right? And then, or let's say 21 million naira if that's more realistic. So 21 million naira times 10, that's 210 million naira. And let's say you want to develop 2 plots of land, right? You can then give that land, the 2 plots of land, to a developer or to an investor to build on it. And then what happens is that when he builds on it, the proceeds of from the development is shared between the landowner, that's you, and the developer. And we're going to go to that, very soon. I just want to be sure that you can, still hear me and that everything I'm saying you follow so far. If you can hear me, just type, I can hear you in the comment section or something like that, and then I will go ahead. Okay, I can't see any comments yet, so I am concerned now. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Samuel, thank you. All right, Babatani, thank you. So now let's break it down. Um, sorry, those things on the screen, can you take them out so I can see my slides? The like, yeah, thank you. All right. So now this is how land banking works. Now let's go into it proper. You could acquire land at a relatively low price and you hold this land until the value appreciates. Then you can either sell, you can lease, or you can lease. Now, this is land banking. Let me give you, I mean, I've explained it before, but let me go further. Right? Land. Some people say they bank land, and then what they do is they just go anywhere, and then buy land, and then wait and then expect it to appreciate, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but there is land banking and then there is strategic land banking. So you could go buy land right now in 2022 somewhere in Djibouti or the truth is, if you buy land anywhere, it always turns out to be a good investment. But hey, if you are going to invest strategically, right, you have to decide how long do you want to wait, right? You could bank land for 2 years and boom, it appreciates. You could bank land for 5 years, you could bank land for 10 years, you could bank land for as much as 20 years and you're struggling, right, to sell. I mean, and there are so many factors that would affect if you are making real returns or not. There's inflation, there's cost of the dollar and all that. So you want to be strategic. Now, if you are if you are familiar with the Lekki Epe Expressway, you will see that from Aja down to Ibejuleki, depending on where on if you are familiar with this axis, you will see that there are lots of lands that are just there lying fallow, right? And then every now and then you see a new development on it, most of them commercial. Now, what most of these landowners did is that when the when that Lekki Expressway was not as attractive as it is right now, they were just buying up lands in that area, right? And what happened is that the place started blowing up, cost of land started going up, and some of them started leasing their lands. I mean, some of them sold it, right, and made good money. Yes, but compare that with someone who goes to what's the name now? Like an interior village, where you don't even have an idea if the government would come there, to what's the name now? to develop the place and all that. What happens is that, yes, you might end up getting, returns from your land. Of course, your land would appreciate and all that. The question is when. You do not know when, right? So the man who bought a parcel of land on Lekki Expressway in, say, 2000, and then in 2022, let's say he bought it then for, say, maybe, say, 1 million naira, and in 2022 his land is worth 45 million naira. Yes, he's making times 45 of his money. We agree. It took him 22 years to make, times 45 of his money. We agree. But there's someone else who probably bought, a parcel of land in Lekki Phase 1, uh, within that same period, you know, for maybe, say, 5 million naira thereabout. I mean, let's just work with numbers now. And then after 3, 4, 5 years, he decided to, sell it, and then he made, times three, times four, times five of his money, in that short period. Now, so when you are, if you decide to use land banking as an investment strategy, you have to understand what your goal is. So do you just want to buy land and just hold it and then wait for it to appreciate? Whenever it appreciates, then you sell? Or do you want to hold this land and in a short time, say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you develop the land or you sell it and then make profits? That's dependent on what your strategy is. So you have to start off with a strategy. What exactly is your strategy, right? What's your end goal, right? And that's land banking. Now, a second way, oh man, this line's right. All right. A second way to create wealth or build wealth with land ownership is joint venture, like I said, right? Now, I've said it before, when you buy land, you can either decide to sell it, right, after some years, or you can lease it, or you can develop it. Now, when we say develop it, we are talking about building on the land. So, if you want to build on your land, there are basically two ways you can fund it. You can either fund it by yourself, and funding it by yourself means you're either taking your savings and you are developing the property, or you are either taking a loan from the bank and the liability, from that loan, is tied to you, or you are either bringing investors. Let's say you are a company, you are bringing investors and are giving them equity. It's still the company that is, developing the land. Another way you can, fund, this development is through joint ventures, right? And this is how joint ventures work. Now, you own a parcel of land. Let's say the land is worth 100 million naira. I don't know when you bought it, right? The land is worth 100 million naira. And that 100 million naira is the worth of the land. Now, you bring an investor, right? The investor, designs a project, or the developer designs a project and says, you know what, we want to put, let's say, 12 units of two-bedroom apartments on your property. 12 units of two-bedroom apartment on your property. And he says the cost to develop, or the cost to put that 12 units of two-bedroom apartment on your property is 300 million naira. Now, this is how, you would share it. 100 million naira is what you have in equity. 100 million naira is what you are contributing to the project. That's the land, right? While the investor is contributing 300 million naira to the project, right? The total cost of this project, both the land and the building that will be on the land, is 400 million naira. This slide is supposed to read 400 million naira here. Okay. It's 400 million naira, right? And then what happens is you decide to say, okay, let's go ahead and develop this property, right? The entire cost of this project, the land plus the development itself, is 400 million naira, right? So your equity on that project is 100 million naira divided by 400 million naira. That's 1/4, 25%, right? The developer's equity or the investor's equity is 300 million naira divided by 400 million naira. That's 3 over 4, 75%. So when you develop the project, when you build the project and then it comes out, and then you either sell or you want to share it or something, right? What happens is that the entire development, let's say the total value of the development is 600 million naira. 25% of that, which is your share, is 150 million naira, right? And that's what goes to you. For the investor, the 75% of his projects or of the development, right, of the development is 450 million naira, right? And that is what goes to him. And that's basically how you share, the new development, right? So 150 million goes to him, he makes 50 to you, you make 50% profit. 450 million goes to him, he makes 50% profit. It's that simple. So because you have a parcel of land which you probably bought 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, you know, you have something to bring to the table, right? So you don't necessarily have to bring, the money for the project itself, because you've bought the land, you've brought the land, and you're giving it to the investor who doesn't have land, but he has money to develop. And that's basically how joint ventures work. Um, I'm going to give you, time to ask questions, but I want us to just take this through. I would have said let's stop here and then take questions. Or what do you think? Should we just go on with it? Yeah, so let's just go on with it. Right? Now that we understand, how joint ventures work and how land banking works, let's now discuss land co-ownership, you know, as a strategy to building wealth. How more than one person, how a lot of people can come together and co-own land using both the land banking strategy and the joint venture strategy to building wealth. Now, co-ownership, first of all, is a strategy, that allows a group of investors contribute funds or contribute money together to acquire property with the sole aim of making profits. So this property you're acquiring could be a parcel of land, it could be one plot of land, it could be 10 plots of land, it could be 50 plots of land, it could be one building, it could be, a number of apartments, it could be, a number of shops, it could be, you could even come together and build, right? So that's basically what co-ownership does. The beauty of co-ownership is that it reduces your risk and it gives you leverage. So somebody owns 10 million naira, and 10 million naira cannot buy you a two-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1 or in Ikate, right? But if that person collaborates with 6 other persons, with 10 other persons, they can come together and own a two-bedroom apartment, right, in Lekki Phase 1. Now, co-ownership is basically for people who want to earn returns from real estate. Co-ownership is for people who, understand the beauty of real estate, understand how stable it is. I want to partake, of it, but do not have the funds to do that. So co-ownership is not for someone who wants a four-bedroom duplex where he can live in. Co-ownership is not for someone who wants to use the property himself. Co-ownership is for investors. It's not for users. So let's get that straight. Now, with the co-ownership strategy, each investor's contribution, represents the amount of equity they are entitled to for the property they invest in. So if you invest 1 million naira in a property worth 10 million naira, your ownership of that property is 1 over 10. So if you sell the property, what you would get in return as profit or as revenue from the sale of that property is 1 over 10 of whatever, the property is sold at. If you receive rent from that property, what you would get is 1 over 10 of whatever um, rent you receive. Now, let me use numbers to explain this. Let's look at the property, worth 25 million naira. The property is worth 25 million naira, and we have five co-owners on that property. Now, Mr. A contributed 2.5 million naira to the property. Let's say it's a parcel of land. Let's say a parcel of land somewhere in Aja, right, or Shongutedu, right, or Abidjan, wherever. Mr. A contributed, right? Mrs. B contributed 10 million naira, she owns 40%, right? Miss C contributed 5 million naira, she owns 20%. Dr. D contributed 3 million naira, he owns 12%. Engineer E contributed 4.5 million naira, he owns 18%. Now, let's say that we decide to sell this property, say in 4 years, and the property is now worth 100 million naira. Mr. A will get 10%, which is 10 million naira. Mrs. B will get 40%, which is 40 million naira. Miss C will get 20%, which is 20 million naira. Dr. D will get 12%, which is 12 million naira. Engineer E will get 18%, which is what, 18 million naira. Now, the beautiful thing about equity is that everybody gets like the same, rate of return. So let's say a property is worth 25 million naira and is now sold for 100 million naira. It means that the property, appreciated by times four, right? That's by how many percent now? 400%, right? Now, uh, everybody's investment appreciated by the same margin, but the reason they are getting different Okay, I really do not know what happened just now. Um, my slides just disappeared. Okay, can you just find a way to get this to your mail and then I'll get it from there. All right. So I was saying, sorry guys, I really don't know what happened just now. Okay, until I get my slides back, let me just continue explaining. I don't know, the software just went off on me. Okay, so now let's decide. Let's assume that Okay, can you hear me now? Someone says I can't hear you again. Can you hear me now? Let me be sure before we come back. Please let me type in the comment section if you can hear me. Okay, okay, great, great. All right. Um, come please. Let me get my slide here. Okay, now let's assume that we want to use the land banking strategy to the co-ownership strategy to bank land. Now we set up jointly, get our licenses and do all that, and then we launch, right? And we decide to put up a product that allows you bank land. Now, first thing you have to understand is that land banking is a long-term strategy, right? And so if you are going to be purchasing that product, you are probably purchasing the product with money that you want to invest, for a long term, right? I still need this slide here for with money that you want to invest, for long term. So let's say the property is worth 30 million naira, and then we break it down into let's say we break it down into 100 places, right? 30 million naira into 100 places. So one slot is worth 300,000 naira. Now, and then you come and then you decide to buy, say, maybe five slots of land, five slots, right? That's 1.5 million naira. What it means is that you own 1.5 million naira in the entire, 30 million naira parcel of land. Now, let's assume that that land, we decide to hold it for, and that 1.5 parcel of land. I mean, you could decide to buy one slot for 300,000 naira. You could decide to buy two slots for 600,000 naira and all that. But let's say you buy 5%, 1.5 million naira. Now, if you decide to hold that land for 5 years, right, and that 30 million naira worth of land, the value increases to 150 million naira. That's times five. What happens is that in 5 years, if we decide and say, okay, let's sell this land, right? That land will be sold at 150 million naira, and your returns will be 1.5 million naira times five, because it basically appreciated up to 1.5 million naira, 150 million naira. So your 1.5 million naira that you invested has now become 7.5 million naira. Simple, right? But my personal strategy for investing, when I do land banking, I prefer to do land banking, you know, so that I can develop. So the strategy I like to use is buy, hold, develop for land banking, right? Because the beauty of real estate is you get real value from real estate when you develop the property. So look at places like Civic Center. Imagine that Jimovia, had bought that land, and then what he did was sell the land to someone else. He would have taken the money, 1 billion, whatever, take that money, put it in his pocket, put it somewhere else, right? But with that land, right, he he built something on it. So he's earning returns on that property. It's an asset that he can, use as leverage. It's an asset that he can use to get loans from the bank and all that and all that and all that. So there's a lot of benefits when you hold, when you develop, your property. And that brings us to uh, the joint venture strategy, right? So how can you use the co-ownership strategy, on joint venture? Or basically, I called it joint venture using the co-ownership strategy. Um, can you give me 2 minutes, please, so I can get my slides on this particular laptop? Because the other laptop, I don't know what happened. Yes, you can come there. Okay, seems my system is back. All right. Let me just go back to my slides. Technology. Can you just take this out? Okay. Now let's talk about joint venture using the co-ownership strategy, right? So this is how it works basically, right? I mean, I've explained joint ventures, right? You own land, and then what happens is, you use your land as equity to get the development, on your property, and then you share, you know, in the benefit or in the profit from that development. Now, let's look at joint venture using the ownership strategy. Now, step one, you combine funds with other investors to own a parcel of land, right? Now, what happens is that let's assume that the parcel of land is what, let's take the numbers up a bit. Let's play with bigger numbers, right? Let's say the parcel of land is worth 100 million naira, and different people bring up different amounts, right? Let's say this 100 million naira, which is the cost of the parcel of land, right? We decide to divide it into 200 slots, right? 200 slots, which means each slot is worth 500,000 naira. And we say, okay, you know what? We are going to allow you co-own this parcel of land over the next, say, 1 month, over the next, say, 3 months. So you have 500,000 naira, you just buy one slot. That one slot gives you, 1% in the property. Is it 1% now? No, 0.5% in the property, right? Now, someone else says, okay, 500,000 naira, I have 5 million naira, I want to invest, right? I buy 10 slots. That gives you 5 million naira. 5 million naira gives you 20, 5% in the property, right? 5%. Someone else invests 10 million naira, someone else invests 1 million naira, like that. And then we all purchase this property. Oh, I took it back a bit. Now, what happens is, first of all, you own a stake in that property. Now, after we purchase the property, let's say we purchase the property in Lekki Phase 1, we now design a project. Let's say we want to build, an apart hotel, 7 floors, let's say 56 units of two-bedroom apartments, right? Now, the total cost to develop this, uh, apart hotel or this block of apartments, let's say it's around, say, 1.3 billion naira. Remember, don't get scared. We are jacking the numbers up a bit, right? Let's say it's 1.3 billion naira. Now, if you bring that land, as equity for that project, if we bring that land as equity for that project, automatically what it means is that in the entire project, right, we own a stake in it. So if the cost of the project is 1 billion naira and the cost of our land is 100 million naira, we own 10% of the project. Now, let's say that we decide to wait for 2 years before we put that property up for joint venture. Let's say we decide to wait for 2 years. Let's say, and then in those 2 years, our property is worth 150 million naira. Or something, drastic happens, and then, we value our property at 200 million naira. Or let's say because we had cash, and that's one of the benefits of co-ownership, right? Because different people are bringing their money together, you have bulk funds to play with. Let's say we bought that property at 100 million naira below the market value. Let's say the market value was 150 million naira, but because we saw a distress sale, somebody wanted to sell the property at that time, he needed money to sort something, and then he put his property worth 150 million on the market for 100 million naira, and then we bought it at 100 million naira, right? What now happens is that the property that we bought for 100 million naira at the time of purchasing it is worth 150 million naira, right? And then let's say in 2 years we decide to um, do a joint venture. Now, the property is worth to me 150, 180, 200 million. Let's put it on 200 million naira. Its value is worth 200 million naira. And the project is worth 1 billion naira, which means that we are contributing, 200 million naira to the entire project worth 1 billion naira. Now let me break it down a bit. Now, 1 billion naira is the cost of the project. 200 million naira is the cost of the land, which means that the entire thing is what 1.2 billion naira. That is the project, because the project cannot, float in the air. It must sit on the land. So the land is part of the what of the project. Now, what exactly is now our own share from that project? 200 million naira is the cost, is what we brought, right? And the project is what, 1 billion naira. When you add it, it's 1.2 billion naira. So we basically own about 16%, like 16.67% of the project. Let me share my screen instead of sharing my slides. Then I can. Okay. All right. So we basically own about 16.67% of the project. Now, using the co-ownership strategy, and let's assume that the entire project is funded on jointly. Because you are signed up to jointly, you can decide to co-own the land when we are buying the land, right? And when we bring out the building project, let's say we design the building project and then put it on jointly, right? You can also decide to own parts of apartments. Let's say we have 44 apartments, 56 apartments. You can decide to own a part of a particular two-bedroom apartment, in that project. So you are now a co-owner in two different ways. First, you co-own the land, right? So whatever returns come from that project, you have a share in it, right? Now, you decide at that time you have some funds to invest when the project comes up, and you decide to co-own a particular apartment, right? So whatever comes from that particular apartment also goes into your pocket. Now, the good thing about co-ownership, and Barrister Olasheni will talk about it at the end of the webinar when he talks about legal, right? The good thing about this is that using the strategy that we plan to use, on jointly, whatever you invest is you can hold it, for the rest of your life, right? You can pass it to your next of kin, you can pass it to your children, you can pass it to whoever you want to pass it to. So it's not something that you own and then after a few years, that's the end. So if you co-own it, you own it for the rest of your life, you earn returns from it for the rest of your life, right? And then you can pass it on to your kids. Did we get that part? I just want to be sure that we got that part. If you got it, please just type something in the comment section. Please, if you got it, just type something in the comment section so that I will go ahead, because we still have to bring in the lawyer to talk about the legal implications and all that of land co-ownership. Now I'm concerned. I hope everyone could see me. Okay. I'm saying that. Okay, yes, I got it. All right, beautiful, beautiful. I'm glad that you got it. So that's how joint ventures, work using the co-ownership strategy. You can be a co-owner, with on the land itself, and then enjoy, returns from the property itself. And then you can also decide to be a co-owner of any of the apartments and also enjoy returns. If you have questions about that, I'll answer them at the end of the webinar. Let's look at the next slide. So that basically brings me to the end of my part, of this presentation. And right now, I want to bring up one of the brightest lawyers, in Nigeria. His name is Olasheni Aka Bashorun. I hope I pronounced that well. Olasheni Aka Bashorun. He is the lead partner of Olasheni Aka Bashorun Legal. Please let's have him in.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, or more like evening. Good
Unmute your
evening,
mic,
everybody.
please.
It's unmuted. Can you hear me? It's unmuted.
No, we can. Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me?
Okay. I'm
Can you
saying
hear
that.
me
Okay,
now?
yes, I got you. All right, beautiful. Glad that.
Can you guys hear me?
I'm saying that. Yeah, sure.
Okay, okay, all right, great. So, good evening, everybody. Olisa, thank you for that very introduction. Yeah, I mean, it's
Sorry, I'm
it's
coming.
it's an honor to be here with everybody this evening, and I must say you really done justice to the presentation, especially as it pertains to the peculiarity of the land banking, the joint venture, and then as well as the co-ownership. Right. So I would like to come from a legal standpoint, just to ensure that everyone gets a better understanding of the structure of co-ownership, right? So first of all, co-ownership is a general umbrella, right? And then under it, you have joint tenancy as well as tenancy in common, right? But given the explanation, right, and then the presentation by Olisa, what is applicable to this, to our talk this evening is the tenancy in common, right? So what the tenancy in common means is that, I mean, a structure is created where two or more persons come together, pool resources, and then they own a parcel of land or landed properties, right? And in the event, right, that either of the co-tenants passes on, right, the interest that was held by either of the co-tenants will then devolve onto the person's personal representatives or legal heirs, right? Now, a more apt analogy would be um, take shares, for instance, shareholdings and shares in companies, right? So as a shareholder, what you have, right, is an equitable interest in the company, right? So you have a stake, right, of the company's share capital base, right? So say for instance, you have a 20% stake in the company's share capital base, right? So that entitles you to influence to an extent, right, how the company is being run, right? And then that share being a personal property, right? You can either assign it, you can transfer it, or you can sell it, right? So just as the co-ownership structure works, right? So once you hold a percentage of whatever it is, landed properties, right? You hold an interest, right, in the overall capital base of the company, or rather in the real estate product. This is me bringing it home, right? So there's a real estate product and there's a certain sum that has been affixed to the product, right? Once you buy a percentage, right, dependent on how much funds you're able to spare, right? You own the interest in that overall project, in the real estate product, right? And you can then take the interest that you have, right, during your lifetime. You can decide to assign it to somebody else, right? You can transfer your interest or you can sell your interest. But ultimately, what is most prominent is that in the event of, I mean, God forbid, right, anybody's passing, right, your personal representatives, your legal heirs would step into your shoes. Of course, I mean, there would have been some documentations to ensure that to
So I think something happened with Barrister Shani's connection. Okay, he's so I mean Nigeria is just something else, right? So I think he has some issues with power. So while we are waiting for him, he says we should give him about 10 minutes. So he comes back. While we are waiting for him, I know you have questions, So let's start taking your questions, so that I'll start answering, them, and then the ones that concern, the legal aspects of land co-ownership will push them to by Sashani when he comes back. I know he would finish his own part, and then we'll take questions from him as well. So please, let me see questions from him as well. So please, let me see questions. Um, so you can drop your questions in the comments section, and I'll take them one by one. And okay, so Hilary says, uh, Hilary says, are there limits caps to the amount of people who can invest in a particular property? Yes, every property has, a maximum number of investors. So let's say, for instance, let's use a 10 million naira, property. A 10 million naira property is worth 10 million naira. And if we break down each slot to 500,000 naira, right, it means that we just need how many investors, right? About 200 investors or 200 co-owners. Let's not call investors now. 200 co-owners to own that property. So uh, once we have raised the 10 million naira, sorry, let me explain this properly. 10 million naira, 500,000 naira per slot or per share, which means we have 200 slots or 200 shares, right? So not necessarily 200 co-owners, but 200 shares. So once those 200 shares are bought, right, that particular property is capped. You can't purchase that property anymore, right? So if you buy 5 shares, you can buy 10 shares, you can buy 2 shares, but provided that 10 million naira is raised, that's the end of that particular investment in that property. So Lovepreneurship TV, it says my questions are as follows. Wow, lots of questions, but I can't see your questions yet.
Yeah. Um.
Okay, Barrister Shani is back.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just
Sorry about that.
continue with
So
him.
of course,
and then we'll
PHN
continue
struck.
with the questions after now.
Can you hear me? Please let me know if you can hear me. Hello, can you hear me? Lord. Hello. Can anyone hear me? Please let me know if you can hear me. Lord.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Yes, we
So
can hear
my
you.
sincere apologies. Of course, NEPA struck, and then I had to get the generator powered on. So as I was saying, the concept of co-ownership as of today is very instructive, right? Given the fact that a lot of people, right, would really want to explore and partake in the real estate opportunities that are prevalent in the real estate market as of today, right? But then the barrier to entry is set very high, right? So co-ownership allows you to gather capital with like-minded real estate enthusiasts, right? And then that way you're able to have certain real estate assets to your name, right? So now what you're entitled to, right, will be that because of course, I mean the company would have, say for instance, invested in the land, right? Say the company acquired the land or I mean landed property, right? So which would mean that the company has legal interests, right? The company has a legal estate over the said land, right? And then you come along, right? Say for instance, the company has a particular use that it intends to put the land into, right? So it comes to, I mean, anybody who has shown interest, right, and says, look, we have this land, this is what we're trying to achieve with the land, right? So this is the amount it would cost us to put up a project or whatever it is on this land, right? So in that scenario, right, of course, if there are like 10 people who show interest, right, and then they would want to invest in whatever real estate project that the company has advertised, right, you would end up having equitable interest, right? The company has legal interest and you have equitable interest, right? So the evidence to your equitable interest is what we will term as a certificate of beneficial ownership. So this certificate will be issued to you upon the receipt of your funds or capital, right? That you must have sent to the company, right? With respect to whatever real estate product that has been advertised, right? So this certificate gives you the legal authority, right, in the event of any, I mean, issues, God forbid. I mean, of course, like so, in the event of anything, right? So it will be something that you can enforce. It will be a document that you can legally enforce to claim your interest, right, with respect to whatever fund that you must have transmitted or given to the company, right, in tandem with the real estate product that the company has advertised to reel you in, right? So how it works is it's pretty straightforward, right? And these days a number of real estate companies go through a number of structures, right? So there's the cooperative multipurpose society, there's the, I mean, private placement. There's so many strategies that most of these real estate players, most of these real estate companies deploy these days, right? So dependent on which one they believe is most useful in helping them attain their objective, I mean, yeah, they will do that. But what is important that everyone needs to know is that if you're partaking in a co-ownership, right, in a tenancy in common, right, you need to know that you're getting equitable interest in the land or landed property that you have invested your capital into, right? And that, of course, the company has to give you an evidence of beneficial ownership. It's a certificate, right? It's more like a certificate of shareholding, a share certificate, right? So what it does is just to put your mind at ease and let you know that at the end of the day, right, you have a document, right, which has a legal backing, right, that gives you a legal standing with respect to the money that you must have put forward for whatever real estate project or product that the company advertises to you. So that said, I mean, if there are any questions from anyone, if there's anything that you need me to clarify on from my position as a legal practitioner, please feel free to type in your questions in the comment section, and then, of course, I'll be able to answer them. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister Shani. So we'll just go straight to answer questions. There are questions that
Olisa, you're muted.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I was not. My mic was muted, right? So, Lovepreneurship TV. So, we are going to take questions, right? Any question that has to do with you, we'll just push it, legal questions to you, and then any other question, I'll take them. So, this one is from Lovepreneurship TV. She says, "Who or what guarantees investors' equity investments and returns?" I'm trying to understand that. And number two says, "Can investors sell their shares independently?" Okay, I understand number two. Yes, can investors sell their shares independently? Yes, you can sell your shares independently. So let's say you own 10% in a property, and you want to sell it. Yes, you can sell your shares on your own. However, there's going to be a clause that says, hey, we are running this, what's the name now? This platform. If you want to sell, you could offer us your shares first, and then when we say that, that's like a right of first refusal. So if we say, we are not, be willing to purchase your shares at this time, then you can sell your shares to any other, investor, on the platform, or any other co-owner, right, on the platform. So you can sell your shares to co-owners on the platform, or sell your shares to whoever, you want to sell your shares to, provided they, come on the platform. Now, who or what guarantees investors' equity investment and returns? Now, the thing is, these properties are backed by real assets, real estate. So a two-bedroom apartment is a two-bedroom apartment anywhere, right? So if a two-bedroom apartment, is sitting in a building, and then its rents or the returns from the property, comes, it's guaranteed that, hey, the rent is split amongst, what's the name now, the co-owners. Plus, what we are also doing with jointly is, we are coming up, we are going to be signing a partnership, or we are coming up with, a trusteeship service, or how do I put it now? We are going to partner with, a trustee company that oversees these, investments, or this, these ownership structures, right? So what it means is that jointly provides the platform, right? And then the trustee company that we decide to partner with, right, ensures that the money is used for what it's supposed to be used for. And then what happens is that at the end of each period, those who are supposed to earn rent. But Sashani, do you want to, throw more light on that?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, sure thing.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, right? So this takes us back to the strategy that, of course, I mean, you would want to deploy to ensure that the structure that you've put in place is foolproof, and that it guarantees that the investors, right, get their returns as and when due, right? Exploring a trusteeship service is a good structure to put in place, right? What this would mean is that the real estate assets, right, that you're soliciting for capital on, right, would be owned, or rather will be held by a trustee company, right? So this trustee company would have the legal interest over the real estate assets, right? It would hold the real estate asset in trust on behalf of the members or on behalf of your customers who have given capital with respect to the project, right? So this just ensures that at the end of the day, right? I mean, if there are any issues with the investment, right? I mean, the trustee company will be able to step in and ensure that none of the beneficiaries of the trust are cheated out of what is ordinarily due to them, right? So they hold the assets, and then when it's time to give dividends or pay out returns, right, they disburse the monies to the people who have put money down, right? So that's what it means. I mean, that is one angle to look at it. The other angle will be that you register a cooperative multipurpose society, right? So this cooperative society is essentially a cooperative society, right, whose mission or objective is to promote the economic interest of its members, right? So the cooperative society is ordinarily, right, built or wired to be a trustee, right? Because what the cooperative society owns, whatever assets it buys, real or personal asset that it buys, right? It is holding and managing and keeping it on behalf of its members ultimately, right? So if you're a member of a cooperative society, everything the cooperative society does, they do on behalf of their members. So that's also another strategy that can be deployed to ensure that, I mean, the monies are disbursed as and when due, and to also ensure transparency, because the cooperative society structure is mainly a democratic entity, so to say, right? And of course, it's being regulated by the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, and Cooperatives, Lagos State Ministry of Industry, Commerce, and Cooperatives. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, yes, I think that does justice to the question. So Love Preneurship TV, if you have like a follow-up to that question, you could just ask, and they would answer that. Now, Mudashiru says, let's say you could own a land and it was later developed for a rental apartment. As rent increases, will your percentage increase? So let me first, okay, I have two ways to answer this question. Simple answer. As rent increases, will the money you earn increase? Yes. Then as rent increases, will your percentage increase? No. So let's look at it like this with numbers. Let's say the apartment is worth 10 million naira and you invested 1 million naira. So what you own in that apartment is 10%. So let's say rent every year is, for instance, let's say 2 million naira, right? You earn 10% of that 2 million naira. If the rent, and 10% of 2 million is 200,000 naira. If the rent increases to 4 million naira, you still earn 10% of 4 million, but the money that you receive, increases to from 200,000 naira to 400,000 naira. So yes, what you receive as rent will increase, but your percentage remains the same. It's equity. 10% of 10 million is 1 million. 10% of 100 million is 10 million. 10% of 1 billion is 100 million, right? So your returns, would increase, but your percentage remains the same. Now, okay, same question. Okay, Cheese Foodie Hub says, what is the schedule of investment? Are there choices for co-ownership? For developed properties, are there any incomes in between or revenue is only gotten from a sale? Okay, I understand the last question. So are there any incomes in between or is revenue gotten from sale? Okay, so Our strategy is this: we focus on properties that tend to generate more than the regular, rental income, right? So we focus on properties that can be used for hospitality, such as shortlets, shortlets, probably, recreation real estate, beach houses, commercial, real estate shops and all that. So real estate that will generate more income. So, for instance, if you have a two-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1 and you put it on the normal rental market, you probably get like maybe say 3.5 million naira, 4 million naira, 4.5 million naira as rent every year. But if you put it on the shortlet market and let's say you charge say 65,000 naira per night, if you get only say maybe just 200 nights in a year, right? That is already about, say, 13 million naira, right? If you get 100 nights, that is already about 6.5 million naira. So it beats, the regular rental income anytime, any day. You know, unless we have some, properties in really high, in locations that give, some really good income. We our focus is on hospitality, recreation, and commercial real estate. Now, are you going to wait until a sale is made before you receive revenue? No. When rent is received, right, you get paid. So we might control it and say, okay, you know what, every year you receive revenue, right? You receive revenue after the cost of marketing and management and everything has been taken off, right? You receive your revenue. And then we've been talking of, for sake of transparency, coming up with a product or an app that shows you when your property is used, or the property that you've co-owned, is booked and all that. That's something that is still in the works. So yes, you receive revenue, even before a sale. Are there choices for co-ownership? Yes. I do not really understand what you mean, but I want to assume that what you mean is, are there choices, like are there different choices of properties that you can co-own? And the answer is yes. So we are going to be bringing up different types of properties that you can co-own. It could be luxury apartments. It could be parcels of land, for development. It could be, beach houses. It could be party houses. And you are basically going to see the numbers, how, the returns, would come. What is the schedule for investment? I don't quite understand that. Do you understand that, Barrister Shani?
Yeah, well, so I think with the schedule for investment, so I think they want to, or this person wants to know when you would roll out your real estate product, what your schedule is, right? To start putting out real estate products that they can um, buy into. That's what I think that means.
Okay. Okay.
And
So right
and
now,
also,
our
sorry, Olisa,
software is
let me
about
just
95% done, right?
Olisa, can you hear
And
me?
we are currently. Are you saying something?
Yeah. So I just wanted to say one more thing, right? So it could either mean that, right, or it could mean that when you have these real estate products rolled out, right? Uh, I don't know. Can you hear me? Because it seems like what happened to me earlier just happened to you. Yeah, PHCN struck. Um,
Yeah. Okay, I'm back.
oh, you're back. Okay, great. So yeah, please let me know if you can hear me so I can continue. Can you hear me? Just voice it out and tell me you can hear me.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, sure, I
Cool.
can hear you.
What I think the schedule for investment could also mean is that, of course, I mean they want to know timelines, and I believe that you won't be able to answer this appropriately until you have a real estate product that you rolled out, that you've advertised or presented, right? And then of course you put You put issues pertaining to maturity date, pertaining to the time limit for the investment, pertaining to how much you're trying to raise. Essentially, information that just helps them make informed decision about the real estate opportunities. That's what I think that could also mean.
Okay, okay, okay. Yes. So, I mean, anyways, this way, when are we going to launch? Um, in our last webinar, I mentioned that we are still building our software. I mean, it's almost done. I mean, the basic features are done, but we just keep testing and testing so that everything is good. And we are also, working on the legal side of it. So getting a cooperative license, and all that, so that we do not have any issues, with the law. Yeah. And then for the other one, the schedule of investment, like like Barrister Shani just explained, right? Yes, every investment or every product is going to have different schedules. So maturity period, how long will it take to develop, you know, um, returns and all that. So when we put the product on the platform, then we explain, what the schedule, for that investment is going to be. If we've answered your question correctly, if you've not answered the question, properly, right? Please just let us know. Would take a swipe at it again. Then Entrepreneurship TV says, what if the number of investors required are not met within reasonable time? What will happen to the invested fund? So this is how it works. First of all, when we want to, fund a development, right? We don't just take the money and then go fund the development, right? There's a period within which that development is expected to be funded. So whatever money is invested at that time is held in an escrow, right? So it's held until the investment goal is reached. Now, if the investment goal is reached, we then take this money and invest. If the investment goal is not reached, it's simple. It's either that we extend, right, to allow other persons invest, or the money, right, is returned to investors, and that will be communicated, of course, on on the platform. I hope I answered your question. You Mudashiru says, and this is for you, Barrister. He says, what are the things you should look at before accepting any company co-ownership proposal?
Okay, that's a very good question, given the current times that we are in with respect to um, a lot of unscrupulous activities, and people just coming up to get funds from the public, right? Just more or less lure unassuming public into, I mean, just taking an undue advantage of their capital and then just running away with it, right? So what I would advise, from my experience, is that you need to do a proper vetting of the real estate company, right? You need to be able to put faces to the people that are running the real estate companies or real estate investment opportunity, right? And you need to ask questions, right? I mean, whatever structure or strategy that they are putting in place to get money from you, right? You need to have a grounded understanding of what strategy they are deploying, right? And of course, you need to have some sort of documentary evidence, right? Be it a certificate, be it a note that just sort of stipulates the terms of the investment that you're getting into, and also ensure that these documents are signed, right? So that at the end of the day, if push comes to shove, you're able to take this documentary evidence, right, and plead your case before a competent court of law and say that, just build your narrative to say that, okay, at a time you disbursed X amount of money and then you were given this period of time and the money didn't come. So basically, just keep your eyes peeled, right? Pay extra attention, right, to everything, right? Because of course, It's your hard-earned money, right? And you need to know how it's being used, right? And of course, like the company that gets the money from you should ordinarily give you periodic updates on how your money is being utilized. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled, do your research, vet the company, right? Ensure to get documentary evidence for the capital that you've disbursed. So those are my 2 cents.
Okay, this other question is for you too, Barrister. It says, Chukudi says, my question goes to the barrister. Are there specific laws in Nigeria that guide or regulate this kind of shareholding? That's real estate. If yes, then what are those laws, please?
All right. So thank you, Trikudi, for the question. It's a very good one at that. So if you look at the Lagos State Land Registration Law, right, of 2015, right, it has certain sections dedicated to joint tenancies or holders in common, which is also the tenancy in common, right? So there's a legal backing for these types of co-ownership. It's a very recognized um, real estate structure, right? Real property structure, right? So yeah, that's about it.
Chukudi, I hope you are satisfied with that. Okay, let's see if there are other questions. Okay, I think that's basically all the questions we have. I just want to be sure that we're not missing anybody's question. Okay, all right. So Cheese says, I believe I'm satisfied with the responses. All right. That brings us to the end of today's webinar, right? We are going to take all these questions that you've asked, and then we are going to take the responses and then send them via email. We are also going to share it on Telegram, right? And then what we want to do is, have like weekly webinars that discuss different parts of, you know, the jointly system and co-ownership as a whole. So look out for our next webinar, and then also look out for our videos. If you are not following us on Instagram already, please ensure that you follow us. And if you're not on the waiting list, I mean, I don't think anybody here will be on the waiting list. But if you're not, please um, join the waiting list. And we are going to release, a tentative launch date, soon. Maybe this week we'll release a tentative launch date, and then we'll work towards that date, because we've been getting a lot of, messages. When are you launching? When are you launching? But what we are doing right now is to ensure that we do all the back end correctly, right? So that we don't come to the market and then there are lots of things that we've not done. So we end up serving you properly. Thank you very much, Barrister Olasheni.
It's my
Um,
pleasure. Thank you for
it
having
was
me.
a pleasure having you here. Thank you very much for your knowledge and all that. Chukudi asked one more question. He says, "Is Johnny going to have products in Lagos alone?" No, we are not going to have products in Lagos alone. So, but our first products are going to be in Lagos. Then we are going to look for we are going to launch products in locations that actually need these products, right? So, not just Lagos alone. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us on today's webinar. Um, do have a wonderful evening and do have a productive week ahead. Thank you once again. Pastor Shani, thank you. Thank you for coming
Thank you,
on.
Lisa. Thank you very much. You're doing a great work. Keep it up.